Welcome to the Not Old Better Show. I'm host Paul Vogelsang. This is part 2 of our important interview about the Fly virtual reality project. We've been listening to the song Fly, and we've been talking to Dusty Wright, Serena Belsby, and Stephanie Riggs about the project and how their use of immersive virtual reality shows promising results as treatment of the emotional pain and struggle to overcome depression and associated suicidal thoughts. Join me as we resume the conversation and pick up where we left off, listening to Dusty's song, Fly, and how creatively and filmically VR is being deployed. I, of course, have listened to Dusty's song many times now, since first kind of hearing it, and Dusty, first when you shared it, and it is powerful. You need to listen to it, I think, a couple times. You want to describe the song, and then let's talk about kind of, Stephanie and Serena, what after you're hearing the song, what was it that you decided to kind of focus on with the project in creating this environment virtually that could, in fact, overcome some of this anxiety and maybe give a way for people to kind of get out of this thought process. So, Dusty, talk about the song first, and then Stephanie and Serena, if you guys would talk a little bit about how you implemented that song, that'd be a nice thing to hear about.
Well, I think we touched on the last time we discussed this, that I originally started writing the song after I had climbed one of the summits up at Lake Placid. There's a whole series of mountains up there. And I had gotten to the top, and it was an incredibly windy day. And my wife was like, "Oh, don't go too close to the edge. It's so windy." It was incredible. And I felt the exhilaration of that moment. And there was a crow that was flying by, and this lyric flying, fly, and this crow. And it started out a much different thing. It was about the conquest of just being able to climb a mountain. Like, you get in your 50s, it's like you challenge yourself, but, your mind's still willing, but your body sometimes may not give you the help it needs.
Yeah, there's a lot of hope.
I'm like, this was kind of a challenging climb, and okay, we made it to the top, and I feel good about that. Now we got to climb back down. It's going to take another 2 hours. But to get to the top, so I felt that in itself, that small kernel of triumph was kind of song-worthy. And when I got back to New York, I started writing the song. And, as a songwriter, inspiration comes from anything, from your kids, from your environment, from a conversation you overhear on the street. And New York is a great place for that because there's this overstimulation is mind-blowing. But something twisted it sideways. A few days after I started just working on a simple melody, I saw a very sad story in the New York Post about a young woman who had taken her life. And it just really hit me hard that she had no way out, and the oppression she was feeling just completely submarined her will to live. And I thought that I had to create a song around that. And so the song then became this double entendre, this uplifting melody that I had originally written to celebrate this little personal conquest of climbing the summit cascade up at Lake Placid. The duality of that became really powerful for me.
Really don't fear this atmosphere, so relieved I finally can breathe. Fly, fly.
And then coupled that with my brother's death this summer and his fighting depression, and how the family kind of overlooked that, really was even more impactful. So I thought I had to take it to the next level. And I didn't really know how to, I wasn't looking for making money or fame from the song. I just thought, if this song could touch somebody, and we could use VR in a way to touch somebody and impact them and save their life, then that's a good thing. Sorry, I got...
No, thank you. I've known you for a while. It's powerful always to hear your voice. It's powerful to listen to this music that is sung in your voice, and to know what's behind it. It's inspirational, absolutely. but it's also so powerful to hear you talk about this. I think that's the value of some of the recorded word that that you do, and that we're trying to do together here. I know that virtual reality is a new effort, and we're still kind of figuring out the kind of the power behind it. But combined with your music, it's going to certainly remove all of the issues of stigma or any other shame that somehow comes with this subject. And I think it's going to help those of us, the four of us, we're still here. We've been touched by this subject, but we're still here. I even thought, and I'd love to hear, Stephanie and Serena, you guys talk a little bit about this idea of it doesn't necessarily, virtual reality doesn't necessarily have to encompass a particular treatment. It might just be awareness. In other words, somebody that isn't necessarily prone to a suicidal episode, they might value being in this environment so that they can experience this soaring and this lifting and this, kind of some of these ideas, so that they might be able to help others who might be prone to. I mean, was that it kind of going through your mind too, as you were kind of thinking about how to prepare the VR piece to this music?
I think there's definitely an element of the journey from where you start and what Dusty's touching on as far as that depth of emotion that is inescapable, and trying to move that from the claustrophobicness into a sense of freedom, of flight, of evolution, if you will. With virtual reality, what we're able to do is break past something that the mediums right now, up to this point, we've basically been looking at things along the ideas of pictures of things, right? You look at a picture, your television screen is a picture, your computer screen is a picture, your mobile phone is a picture, and we're now moving from a picture of something to an experience of something. And that changes the conversation. Mm-hmm. It changes the conversation from I'm removed from this, and I'm removed from, whether I didn't realize or didn't see the signs of what was happening, or I feel like I can't talk about it, to now I am in this. Now I'm a part of this experience. And that, for me, changes the conversation in a way that's meaningful on the story side, as whether it's you personally being touched by what has happened, or just raising awareness and being able to connect with that journey of emotions that you go through under these circumstances.
Serena, I think, Paul, something very interesting happened during this process of even creating a working script, which I think is important. I think Serena should share that, because I'd come up with a traditional linear narrative, and Stephanie's like, wait a minute, you got to think in VR. This is an interesting premise, but it's completely two-dimensional.
Well, you can imagine when you go to one of these, like I call it a suicide, a convention. It's a very emotional day. Yeah. One of the most emotional days that I spent, because everybody is dealing with this topic, and they're very touchy with the language. And so one thing, for example, I had shared with Dusty and with Stephanie that commit is a word that is just, you do not use that. You do not use the word commit suicide. And everyone, we use this word, not knowing that we're saying something, and it was me having a coffee with Paul, and he just said, do not say that word. We do not say that word, because commit means choice. And so when we had the original script, we sent it off to Paul, and he went through it and made a few suggestions and a few notes. And then it went back to Stephanie and to Dusty and the group, but mainly Stephanie and Dusty, that really punched it up. And I think it's so much better than it was. There was some of the language wasn't really working for the suicide prevention people, I call it.
Well, also just I think the premise itself, without giving the premise away, because we want to keep that as a surprise. Yes. We were dealing with some themes and how to explore those themes or impact those scenes and themes within the VR world. And I thought it was helpful just to get those notes to look at it in a different light, that perhaps we weren't sensitive enough because we're not in that every day.
Right.
We're not in Paul's world every single day, which, by the way, Paul is one of our partners. QPR, like CPR, his company does training and helps in these institutions where there are a high rate of suicides. You know, white middle-class environments where these guys are grinding. And, you know, I heard a sad story today from a friend who said, you know, her neighbor, same thing. The wife didn't know he was depressed. He had 2 kids in college. He had lost his job, was going to work every day for 3 months to a job he didn't have, and then took his own life because he felt trapped. He didn't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
And Paul's company is doing incredible work to break that stigma in the workplace, to say, hey, you know, you're allowed to share. You're allowed to emote. Not every corporation has on-premise psychiatrists or psychologists. A lot of them do now, some of the new hip companies, where you can unload or you can, you know, unprogram yourself from a situation. Maybe you're going to be fired and they have a transition team for you, you know, where you can talk about these things. So getting Paul's input, and then Serena, who's a filmmaker, Stephanie's, we're all 3 filmmakers and content creators, is like, that's been fun. It's like, okay, so how do we frame this in a way that is all-inclusive? And then Steph, of course, had to write the treatment because I don't know how to write in VR or actually working script, because, you know, she's got to be on set as the director and then convey that imagery to the actors, to the camera guy who may or may not be flying a drone. Who, you know, maybe an actor has to wear a VR headset. You know, I don't know. I don't know what tricks she's going to use when we get to that point. I can't wait to see.
I can't wait to see either. I'd like for you guys to tell us a little bit about the project now and how we can help. Where are we really with the timeline? I've of course seen the plan, the proposal, Dusty, that you wrote. That was excellent. But maybe update me and all my listeners about where things are in relation to the project. What project costs have you been able to raise? What remains to be funded? You know.
Well, we need money. You know, so like any project, there's a lot of people donating their time and services, and it's extraordinary that Stephanie has brought us a budget that is so bare bones that, like, if you were truly in VR, you'd look at that and say, there's no way they're going to be able to execute it at the price point that she's laid out. But because she's had 20 years experience, Paul, and because she can call on people who this project will resonate with them, who will donate their time and services. There's some costs that are just prohibitive from, you know, being donated. You just have to pay. But right now, we started Family and Friends. I've just been sending emails the last 48 hours, and we're already getting money in. We've set this up through a not-for-profit through one of our other partners, Daniel Schneider, First Monday, his charity organization. They're going to handle all the accounting. And just this morning, we got an email back from the CEO, Slava Rubin from Indiegogo, who said he will help us on the crowdfunding side. Because you're allowed to do charity crowdfunding on his website. And you know, Slava, how successful Indiegogo is.
Yep.
But I think for the interim right now, and you know, you need to go to Steph's website, sunchaser.com.
It's Sunchaser ENT, entertainment. Yeah, for entertainment.com.
Yes.
Yep.
And there's a page on it for Fly VR, and you can read about the project and the background, listen to Dusty's fantastic song, read a little bit about the people that are involved, and most importantly, take that moment to make a difference.
Which is make a donation.
Which is make a donation.
Yeah.
To share with others. The one thing I think that's really important, everyone has been touched by suicide. Many people just don't know because people don't talk about it.
Right.
And that's the main thing, is to really get people talking. I know that Paul Quinnett and many people in the suicide world, that's their main goal, is just to get a conversation going about suicide, to break down the stigma. And this is on track to do that.
Yeah.
I think one of the great benefits about using virtual reality right now in this moment in time is that it's still got buzz. People are still fascinated by it. What is this? What is this exploration? What does it mean to me? And so it's a way to connect something that people wouldn't normally talk about to something that everyone's talking about.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would say 99.9% of the population, with the exception of those kids that are lucky enough to reserve their Microsoft PlayStation VR thing, which is sold out already for Christmas, by the way.
Sony's,
the secondary market, I'm sure there's some parents will be paying a lot of money. But, most people have not experienced it yet. I suspect in one aspect of our campaign, we'll probably offer a very rudimentary use case, a Google Cardboard or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. We have to discuss that internally, how we're going to share our experience and what that's going to look like. So, you make a donation, and we're hoping that maybe you'll get something that allows you to use it. I mean, Samsung Gear is another way, but there'll be other platforms. We want to make this agnostic, Paul. We want everyone to have access to it.
Well, we're going to make sure that everybody, certainly our listeners, are going to have plenty of access to it. My wife Gretchen and I will be donating. We're going to get as many of our friends, family, and audience to participate as well. We'll put links up on the site. We'll also put a link on our site to the record release party, and as I understand that, it's coming up December 12th, and maybe Dusty, you could touch on that a little bit, because there's going to be a fundraising component to that too. Am I right?
Well, we thought at the very least we should probably Facebook Live that. Especially when I perform the song. So Stephanie or somebody or Serena will sit there with their iPhone and just Facebook Live, and hopefully by then we'll have everything lined up, and it's pretty seamless now to make the donation. I have to say, we've all done it ourselves just to make sure it works. You got to beta test this stuff before you send it to your friends. Yep. The other thing I would say too that I think is really important, and not to beat the fundraising thing to death, but right now, as we know, as we get to the year end, a lot of corporations donate.
Yep.
And I think there are a lot of corporations that want to start this conversation in their company, in the four walls of their company. This is a great opportunity for them to get involved with a project that may want to step up to the plate and write a big check. We can connect them with Paul and his organization. We could come in and show this video when it's done as a part of the experience. That could be a real platinum level experience for a company. They're going to be writing checks, Paul, as you know. I'm sure your mailbox is crammed with charity donation forms right now. I got about 60 of them in the last 2 weeks. Not to say it's just year end; it's just the price of doing business for tax write-offs. Mm-hmm. But that just happened to line itself up. We weren't even really thinking about that initially. It just happens to be we're in that part of the year. And the other thing is we need to raise the money so we can get the video shot and still have time to sneak it into the film festivals that Stephanie allegedly will get us into. I don't want to hold her feet to the fire, but
okay.
I know with the fantastic song as a foundation from Dusty, with the incredible insight Serena has brought, the team that we're putting together, and the vision that we have for how to open up this conversation and have a meaningful project that we're going to be moving this, hopefully just broadening it, not just keeping it within,
Great point.
put into, a symposium or a conference. It's like, whether or not you like de Blasio, his wife, Shirlane, has been a huge proponent of speaking up about depression and making conversations and making it not taboo to have that conversation that you may or may not think that you need to have. So let's extend the conversation. Let's make it okay to talk about it, even if it's under the context of awesome technology.
This is just a brilliant effort. This is a perfect intersection of this immersive environment coupled with music. I know what music does to me as I listen to it with headphones on. And if I'm visually connected to it further with images that are meaningful to me, then I just can only imagine what this can bring about.
We overlook music today. We think it's a commodity that has no value, no numerical value, because people take music from Spotify or from places, and music it's been relegated to something that's disposable, which is not cool. So, I don't want the music to be secondary to the visuals, because we've devalued music because it's just so easily readable today.
We've got to be inspired to do something. I think you said this early on, Dusty. It was just so nicely put, and that was, if if we save one life with this VR experience, we've done our job. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm just personally grateful for all of your time, because this is an important subject. You all are giving it everything you have. We can do our part by helping reach these goals that you have, helping with donations, ginning up support, at least a vehicle for getting this word out, because I think it's so powerful and important. Really, my hat's off to all of you. Dusty, of course, to you as just a longtime friend. I know what this means to you, and thanks for being so open about it and candid, and your words are always powerful, Dusty, so thank you. Please say hi to your wonderful family. Serena, nice to meet you. We're going to be following up, absolutely. Stephanie, so nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being so inspiring. I really value that, and my listeners will. So, Dusty, always so great to talk to you. Again, Serena, Stephanie, you guys are wonderful. Thanks for doing all this work. And we will be following up. And please, all my audience, jump in, support this. It's important stuff.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
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 Gonna carry my pain to the summit. Take my time, I'm tired of running. Shout it loud from the mountainside. As far